Now, I have a rosy future. I got an inheritance that I, his wife, can spend for the rest of my life. My sister-in-law made such comments despite the funeral. When I was too dumbfounded to say anything, all the nurses who attended the funeral suddenly started laughing. What? Why are you laughing? Maybe you're just jealous that I got everything I wanted and you've lost your minds. The nurse's reaction upset my sister-in-law. Then my father rolled his eyes and said to her, "You don't know about that, do you?" My name is Kevin, and I'm 38 years old. I have been married to my wife Jane for 14 years. Our daughter Anne is now 11 years old and is working very hard on her piano lessons. Our family is very close, and the three of us regularly go on outings together and have a good time. I think a huge reason I get along so well with my wife and daughter is because of my parents' influence. My parents are very close, and I grew up watching them. That is why I thought that if I were to get married, I would want my wife and I to be like my parents. There was always a calm and gentle atmosphere, which made me feel very comfortable even as a child, and that is why I love both my father and mother so much. Even now that I am married and my child has grown up, I can relate the same kind of atmosphere, so I think I'm doing my parenting right. There is one more person who is indispensable to my family. That is my older brother, Jack. He is 2 years older than me and is now 40 years old. However, he got married quite late. Only 3 years ago, because he was extremely busy with his work. In fact, my brother is a medical practitioner. He has always been perfect, smart, athletic, and good-looking, with a good personality. He had many talents, but he was diligent and worked hard every day. Because of this, he was always at the top of his class and graduated with honors, and he went on to a very tough medical college. He was a genius, but he was also very kind to his family and to me, his younger brother. That is why I loved him so much. After graduating from university, my brother was a medical intern, and after working as a surgeon, he opened his own clinic 5 years ago. He kindly listens to his patients, explains everything in detail, and is very precise in his treatment. Word of mouth grew, and his clinic became very popular. However, because of this, my brother was so busy working every day that he had no time for his personal life. That is when he met Jennifer, who later became his wife. Jennifer and my brother met through a mutual friend. They shared the same hobby, which is golf, and had similar tastes in music and paintings. Therefore, my brother was attracted to Jennifer, and they started dating. They continued their relationship and got married. However, I had a hard time trusting Jennifer. It was the first time I met her at a family reunion. Although she was trying her best to put on an air of neatness, I felt that she seemed to lack a certain elegance in some places. My sister-in-law was objectively quite beautiful and had once been a model for a magazine. She is 5 years younger than me. However, she seemed to be somewhat haughty, or had a way of thinking that the world worked the way she wanted it to. I myself was not a very good judge of people and did not say anything, thinking that it was my brother's choice and it was his marriage, so it was not my place to say anything. However, I think my intuition at the time was correct. The first New Year's Day after my brother's marriage, he and his wife did not show up at our parents' house. Only my brother came home. When I asked why she didn't come, he said that she was going back to her own parents' house. Even though I asked if she could show up tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, he said that she had no plans to do so. I'm not saying that you should always show up at your in-laws' house, but I still hope that she would at least show up for the first New Year's Day after they got married. Then came Thanksgiving that year, and my sister-in-law still did not show up. And this time, she didn't seem to have gone back to her own parents' house, but was staying at home. My brother said that he wanted her to come with him if she didn't have any plans, but she refused, saying that she didn't have to go with him. I have lost faith in my sister-in-law because of her attitude towards us during these important holidays. I still wanted her to show that she cares for her husband's family members, even if we are strangers. I often visit my wife's family, and she visits my family. I believe that married couples should take good care of each other's family. That is why I could not understand my sister-in-law's sensibilities. I once asked my brother how he felt about his wife's attitude, my brother defending his wife, saying, "I can't force her to do anything, and I owe her for marrying me when I was in my late 30s. At the time, my brother seemed to be head over heels for his wife and would do anything she asked. It was a bit of a shock to me that my brother, who had been so perfect, seemed to be at my sister-in-law's beck and call. But my brother was very busy with his work at the clinic, and it was ultimately up to them to decide about their relationship. I was frustrated but tried not to say anything more. But even after that, my sister-in-law continued to act in ways that made me not trust her. A few years ago, my mother had a stroke once and was hospitalized. Both my brother and I immediately rushed to the hospital. Fortunately, her condition did not worsen, and she was discharged from the hospital and returned to a normal life. My sister-in-law did not rush to the hospital, nor did she come visit my mother. Of course, my wife and daughter came to visit my mother, and when my mother collapsed, my wife rushed to the hospital immediately from her office. Yet, we never heard from my sister-in-law. Not even a phone call or a message expressing concern for my mother. I was so angry that I contacted her directly once. When I called, she picked up the phone in a tedious manner. "Hello? What the heck's going on? I'm busy." "I'm sorry to bother you, but were you cooking or something?" "I was doing my nails." "Nails?" "What? I'm not going to listen to complaints. Just hurry up and tell me why you're calling." I knew it. The wife's tone of voice was completely different from the way she had spoken at the time we met with her and her family. I guess she had been pretending at that time, and this attitude she's showing now was her true character. "My brother must have told you that my mother had a stroke, right? Why didn't you come to visit her?" When I asked her that, my sister-in-law made a surprising remark. "What good would it do if I went? I'm not your relative. I don't have anything to say to you. And it's a bore, so why should I go?" "What are you talking about? My mother fell down." "It's not my family. She's only my husband's. It doesn't matter to me." "Are you serious?" "You're such a pain in the butt. Talking to you is driving me crazy." With that, my sister-in-law hung up the phone. I was so angry that I made up my mind to never get involved with her again. I also reported this phone call to my brother. My brother was shocked to learn that my sister-in-law had said such a thing. "I'll talk it over with Jennifer. I'm always busy with work, so we don't get much time together at home." My brother was exhausted, and he was having a really hard time dealing with his wife. Also, my brother is a person who does not complain too much, so I was really worried that he was pushing himself too hard. A few years passed. My worry came true in the worst way. I was just eating dinner when I heard that my brother had collapsed at work. I hurriedly got into my car and rushed to the hospital. I heard that my brother had collapsed due to overwork. Sleeping in his hospital room, he looked so emaciated that I was shocked that he had pushed himself so hard. My parents were worried that my brother was getting thinner and thinner when he came home sometimes, but he said, "I'm fine, I'm just on a diet." My parents were not fooled by such a lie. They both knew that he was lying and suggested that he should go to a hospital, but he said, "Well, it's not good for a doctor," and laughed. "Don't worry, I'm fine." They told him again, but he did not listen to them. My brother was also a serious person, so he was very kind to each patient and tried his best to provide treatment and consultation. Even so, it must have been physically demanding for him to do everything from consultation to treatment, all by himself. He must have been pushing himself hard for a long time. "I don't think Jack's eating well at home," Dad said, looking at my sleeping brother. "What do you mean? Jennifer is a stay-at-home wife, so she can cook, can't she?" Dad shook his head as I said this. "I heard she rarely cooks. Jack often ate cup noodles, lunches at the convenience store, or went out to eat." "Oh no, what does Jennifer do then?" "She goes out, drinks, and enjoys herself." I was so taken aback by this, and that's when I noticed that my sister-in-law was not here. "Hey, why isn't Jennifer here?" I said, and Dad sighed. "I can't reach her. She's not answering her phone, and her messages are left unread. What in the world is she doing?" I couldn't help but feel sorry for my brother, who was being treated so poorly by his wife. Moreover, she's doing whatever she wanted with the money my brother had worked so hard for. My brother and his wife lived in a very luxurious house, had a luxury car, and must have considerable assets. Even if she did not work, they would be able to live happily for the rest of their lives as long as she was my brother's wife. As I watched my brother sleeping in bed with a sad face, he woke up. "Brother, thank God you're awake. Kevin, and Dad, and Mom." "Jack, you collapsed at work. We were really worried about you." I'm sorry." He apologized to us in a fading voice. For the time being, he was going to stay in the hospital while undergoing various tests to see how he was doing. "Doctor, then the patients who go to my clinic and the nurses who work there will be..." Even at a time like this, my brother was more concerned about the people around him than himself. "Don't worry, we will take care of that." The doctor at this university hospital where my brother was taken was a very nice man. He arranged for the nurses working at my brother's clinic to temporarily work at another hospital, and he also accepted replacement visits here until he could return to work. My brother was relieved that his concerns were resolved for now. He spent the rest of his day in the hospital taking it easy. "How are you doing, brother?" "The food at the hospital is delicious, so I'm feeling quite energetic." "I'm glad to hear that, but that's no good." I warned my brother, who was working on his computer even at a time like this. "I'm sorry, I just can't calm down. I wanted to do some paperwork while I still can." "If you keep doing that, it's going to push back the date you can leave the hospital." "I'm sorry." He closed the computer. "Hey, did Jennifer come to visit you at least once?" "No, she didn't." "But she's your wife." "I've given up on her." My brother looked a little sad when he said that. Maybe he will divorce her after he gets out of the hospital. I went to the hospital every day to visit my brother with such thoughts in my head. It was around that time, suddenly, my brother's condition worsened and he did not return home. Both my parents and I were shocked at the suddenness of the situation. In our grief, we managed to hold the funeral in cooperation with each other. Many people attended the funeral. Among them was my brother's wife, Jennifer. She was the one who had tormented my brother so much. I glared at her, but she didn't even seem to notice my glare and looked bored. This attitude made me even angrier. Moreover, she was wearing high brand clothes, and the fact that those were paid for out of my brother's earnings was very annoying. But for now, let's focus on my brother's funeral. That's what I told myself. But then it happened. After the funeral was over, his wife suddenly stood in front of me. With a big smile on her face, she said something like this to us. "Now I have a rosy future. I got an inheritance that I, his wife, can spend for the rest of my life." He was a boring man who did nothing but work, but he really had a lot of assets. I don't even have kids, so I'm just so happy that all of his money will be mine. My sister-in-law made such statements despite the funeral. Is she crazy? When I was too stunned to say anything, all the nurses who attended the funeral suddenly started laughing. Some of them were laughing so hard that they put their hands on their stomachs. "What is it? Why are you laughing? Maybe you've gone crazy because you're jealous that I got everything I wanted." The nurse's reaction upset my sister-in-law. Dad rolled his eyes and said to her, "You don't know about that, huh?" "What do you mean by that?" She doesn't seem to know anything about it. Dad explained to her without hesitation. "You and Jack are no longer married." "What? What do you mean?" Her eyes widened. "Don't you remember when you and Jack had a fight and you served him with divorce papers? Jack signed and filled those divorce papers." "You're not lying?" "He got the doctor's permission, and then we both went to the courthouse." "Oh no, that was just a threat." "Even if it was a threat, it's an admission that you intended to divorce Jack, because you filled out your part of the form, and you never came to visit Jack, even though he had fallen ill. You even had an affair behind his back. The investigation by the detective agency is also here. You can't get away with it anymore. Since you and Jack are divorced, you will not be entitled to any of his possessions, but rather, you will be charged alimony for the affair." "Oh, no, that's impossible. Why should I have to go through that?" "Jack is the one who has suffered the most. If he hadn't gotten a wife like you who only cares about money, he might have lived longer. All of us here will never ever forgive you, so take that." My sister-in-law was startled and frightened by my dad's angry words. Incidentally, my brother had already taken care of the division of property. He had already given me and my parents a share of his assets before he died. He gave us his house and luxury car. He had also given some of his assets to the nurses who had worked so hard at the clinic. Therefore, my sister-in-law had no assets to receive. She left the venue, dizzy and with a pale face. After that, my parents and I filed a claim for alimony against Jennifer and her affair partner on behalf of my brother. Since she had been a stay-at-home wife, she is now desperately working part-time to pay the alimony. However, it seems that the rough spending habits she used to have when she was living with my brother have not disappeared, and she is now borrowing money from lenders, and eventually, her debt is not decreasing. If she continues to live like that, she will probably ruin herself one day, but it doesn't matter to me anymore, and I don't care what happens to her. I will put all the property I inherited from my brother into savings, and use it to fund my daughter's future tuition fees and retirement for myself and my wife. Although my brother was unlucky with his wife, I am sure that his hard work and dedication to his patients have influenced many people. Since I have been greatly influenced by my brother, I will try to live my life being kinder than ever, not only to my wife and daughter, but also to the people around me, and cherish the connections I have with others.